Today's show is sponsored by Earth Friendly Products. For over 40 years, Earth Friendly Products brought you the greenest home products for all your family needs. Learn more at ecos.com. That's ecos.com. Now, let's get to the show.
What's your thoughts on government cover-ups or covert societies attempting to control humanity? Do you believe in ancient astronauts, intergalactic communication, or extraterrestrial visitations? Ever had an experience with disembodied spirits or the paranormal universe? Are these subjects fact or fiction? Each week, Tony and Eddie explore these unbelievable realities and beyond. Exclusively on Truth Be Told.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie. I'm your host, Tony Sweet.
And I'm Eddie Connor. Today our listeners and viewers will be learning about the Akashic Records.
Eddie, I had someone the other day just ask me about what are the Akashic Records.
What'd you tell them?
I told him to tune into the show and listen to Linda.
That's right. Linda Howe is an award-winning author, teacher, and world-renowned leading expert in the field of Akashic studies. She's the first person to bring the Akashic Records to the world community in 1994.
She founded the Linda Howe Center for Akashic Studies, and Linda's joy is focusing on the Akashic Records as a spiritual resource for personal empowerment.
She is especially excited to share her latest book, Discover Your Soul's Path Through the Akashic Records, which is about taking your life from ordinary to extraordinary. And it was published by Hay House. Now, this latest offering follows her previous books, How to Read the Akashic Records and Healing Through the Akashic Records. Please welcome award-winning author, teacher, and world-renowned leading expert in the field of what else? Akashic Studies, Linda Howe.
Linda, they love you.
They do. That's a lot of people traversing the universe that are clapping.
Oh, the feeling is mutual.
Well, thank you so much for being here. You know, this is the your freshman time on the Truth Be Told show. So what we say is here at the first time, we want to get to know you a little bit before we start talking about the actual study of Akashic Records. So tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to this point of studying the Akashic Records.
Well, all right, I'd be happy to. I really would. Well, and I'll tell you why. Because this isn't something that, I'm from Chicago. I'm really a Midwesterner. I never even heard the word Akashic.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't use words like that here in the Midwest.
Not at all. I'm from Kansas.
Okay, so you understand, right? So this is not something that in the ordinary, that I could ever have planned, but it certainly has been a path that has just been, like laden with blessings for me, and I'm really grateful for it. But as a result of a very ordinary childhood right here in Chicago, I woke up at the age of 24 and realized I'd set everything up very well. I'm a pretty good manager, and I thought life was a management challenge. That's really, and I thought if I could just get everything lined up, right? I'm just going to get all the pieces in place. Well, then I was going to be happy. Well, lo and behold, I woke up and I had done my utmost and, I put this whole puzzle together of a life that really looked terrific and just felt like hollow. And I was really crushed. But I realized that there was something really missing, and that there was more to life, and whatever it was was not gonna. It didn't exist outside of me. So do you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I prayed a very desperate prayer, and lo and behold, within a couple of weeks, I had a profound, riveting moment. It might have been 30 seconds. And I know so many of us at this time have these moments that are really life-changing. And what occurred to me was that a couple of things. One is that we're all one. And this blew my mind because I lived in a third floor apartment in the city. It just was beyond my comprehension. But I had the sense of being one with all of creation.
Hmm.
Okay,
That's
so that
beautiful.
was the first thing. The next thing that really it hit me was that what that in the universe, I felt completely known, almost like the light of the universe could see through me and loved me.
Mm.
I have to tell you, it rocked my world. Because nothing in my traditional Midwestern upbringing prepared me for this. But I thought, whatever this is, I have to have this in my life. And so I set out on the quest. I'm that kind of a person. I thought, all right, let's go. So off I went, and I spent really the next 16 years of my life um, looking. I did everything. I mean, everything that was available then, I did it. I missed a few things
Right.
there. New things have become available since, but I was really looking. Okay, and what happened was at the age of 40, this was in 1994, I found myself in a situation where someone said the word Akashic Records. And I have to tell you that it was like the word went into my heart. So I went to this class and followed the directions and opened my records, and don't you know, it was the closest experience I had ever come to the one I had when I was 24.
Mm.
Just and that was in 1994. I started working in the records. By 1996, and I had a practice of working, doing readings with people, which I still do. Right, I love
Right.
it. It's fabulous. So I did that. So from 94 to 96, by 96 I was teaching because I saw that certainly at this point in the evolution of humanity, at this point in history, anybody who wants to do this should be able to. So um, and certainly my clients, the people who come to see me, I mean, these people are, do you know, these are people who are exploring themselves and reality. I thought, well, let's share this. So in 1996, I started teaching. In 2001, I got the prayer that my books are based on. It's the Pathway Prayer Process, and it accesses the heart of the records. My first book came out in 2009. That's How to Read the Akashic Records,
Right.
followed in 2011 by Healing through the Akashic Records, and then in 2015, Discover Your Soul's Path. And now I'm working on my next one. I actually too just I mean I have very exciting news. I just received my doctorate.
I read that.
Did you read that? How about
Congratulations.
it? How about all right? Let's just
Wait a
dance.
minute. Wait a minute. You gotta at least have yes, Dr. Linda. Congratulations.
Thank you. But you know what? This is very exciting. I mean, I have a doctorate now in spiritual studies, Akashic Records from Emerson Theological Institute, and I am the first person ever to have a degree at this level in
Oh,
this work.
wow.
Yeah,
That
this
is
is
amazing.
so. So there you have it. So here we are. Here we are today. But I have to tell you guys something. This is so funny. When I first came into the records, one of the very initial awareness, right, that really struck me was this. It was like, oh, this is an infinite spiritual resource. Okay.
Hmm.
And here's the thing. I thought I knew what that meant. And here I am. I'm like, oh, wait a second. I'm working on my fourth book. I've got another one in the pipeline. I mean, it just is like, it's a dimension, right? It's the Akasha. Akasha is a Sanskrit word, and it means primary substance.
Hmm.
Okay, so we're talking about the the essence of life before we get to it with all our with all our big plans. Anyway, so that's what it's made of. It's the soul level dimension of consciousness. So that's what we're talking about here. And it is far beyond, certainly beyond my comprehension. Just when I think it's about to dry up and the party's going to be over, I'm
Right.
like a whole new dimension opens up. So
Well,
so there you have it.
Well, let me ask you this then. So when did Akashic Records, the term, come into play for the modern times?
Okay, well, this is very interesting because do you know what? Rudolf Steiner actually attached, and this was in the 19th century. Steiner attached the word. He started referring it to the Akashic record, but it wasn't until the middle of the last century, middle of the 20th century, when Edgar Cayce. Are you guys familiar with him?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we love some Edgar.
We all go Edgar.
Edgar.
Anyway, Edgar Cayce. I mean, what a gifted man. What he did is he popularized the Akashic record here in the West, right?
Right.
And part of it was that, first of all, his work was really just so inspired. He was able to connect into the records. But I'll tell you, but see, there are a couple of things here that are significant. In the middle of the last century, it was quite common that only one person. See, Cayce he really was special. But because the rest of us weren't ready to do this. So, but Cayce was, and that's good. And so he couldn't teach anyone how to do this. Do you see?
Yes, yes.
Right, of course.
So that's one thing. Here's the next thing, is that when he worked in the records, he was unconscious, right? He was he was in a deep trance, Okay, so we're going to fast forward to, whatever year it is, the 2001, whatever this century is. Okay, so we're going to come to the century. So here we are. And here's the difference in really about 50, 60 years. At this point, using the pathway prayer process, anyone with a sincere desire to connect with their own records can do so consciously, responsibly, and deliberately. So you don't have to be in a you don't have to be you don't have to be a trance channel. You don't even have to be psychic, right? Because it's the record of your soul, right? And so it's the difference. If you think about it, it's not that long. We've gone from it being exclusive, right?
Right.
To now. I mean, it's the first time in history, really, that secular people like us have access to this realm in a very conscious way. So it's very, very exciting. And actually, my first book was the first book out there. See, prior to that, there were well, there weren't that many. I think there were 4 or 5 books about the Akashic record, but no one could say this is how you do it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
Yes.
So, and there's a lot of material that addresses Cayce's experience in the records, right? But so this was the first book that it really is a how-to book, right? Like how to do this, and then so that anyone who wants to can, right? So it's the difference, and this actually says a lot about where we are as as humanity is awakening. Everybody's awake. Wake up, everybody.
I think more and more people are nowadays. They're starting to wake up.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I also think people are more open-minded, obviously, than they used to be. I think part of Edgar Cayce's tremendous success in being able to articulate the Akashic Records back then, some 50 or 60 years ago, was he was very spiritual under the umbrella of religion and outside of the umbrella of religion. So he was like very Joel Osteen for his time, bringing in all of that traditional religious scripture. And then, then bleeding the message in the crack. To me, Joel Osteen is Abraham Hicks.
Yes, I get that.
Yeah,
sure.
But of course he's smart. He's not going to stand there and go, "Oh, by the way, I am on the CD of the Month Club at the Abraham Hicks organization, y'all," because he's not stupid. Okay. Now, the first time I ever heard about the Akashic Records was in the early '80s. Mid to early 80s, and I went to see this intuitive named Sue Burton, and she was taking me on a past life regression.
Ooh.
Now, see, I'm from North Carolina because we didn't have words like Akashic Records. We had deep fried chicken. We had,
you still do.
Yeah, we had biscuits and gravy. We understood what that meant, but you didn't say things like oversoul or Akashic Records or even yoga.
Right.
And so I'm laying on the table. She's in the basement of her house so that the witches don't come and get us. And I'm in the basement, and she's taking me through this very deep, deep, deep guided meditation to get me into my past lives. And then she said, you're going to go down these stairs. And once you get to the bottom of the stairs, there's a long tunnel. And on each side of the wall of the tunnel are torches to light your way. And then as soon as my foot hit the floor in that tunnel, I just felt this electricity go through me. And she sort of giggled and she said, oh, so you already know you're in the hall of the Akashic Records.
Oh, wow.
And I had never heard that word, but I had that feeling you described in my heart chakra. And then, of course, you go down the hall of records and you pick a door, you pick a file, you pick a cabinet, you pick a folder, whatever it is. And it was a life-changing experience for me. So I love how you said you don't have to be psychic. You don't have to be a trance channel. You could be a layman, and then if your heart is pure and in the right place, you can literally use that, quote, primary substance to get yourself to the next level on a soul level.
Mm-hmm.
That's good stuff. Are you familiar with the book by Jane Roberts? I know you is, girl, because you all smart and stuff. Jane Roberts' book, The Oversoul 7 Trilogy.
Yes, of course.
Of course, I love you. You're like,
listen, I don't know. Yes, the 80s. I mean, that's what we had, right?
Yeah.
That's what we had.
Yes, and now they're repackaging it so you get it all in one book. And I'm reading it for the 4th time. Of course, we always learn something different in it. And that's what I think of people like you, Linda, as super, super brave, especially in the time that you were starting to put this information out there. But I think what makes people, you can either get burned at the stake, or you can get booed out of town, or they can chase you with pitchforks, or they embrace you. I think we're embraced when we do what you're doing, and that's you're coming from love. You're coming from sincerity. You have this authentic, genuine desire to uplift people on the planet, or rather to give them the information to uplift and transform their own experience. And you can just tell in listening to your giggles and your happiness and your frequency. So I'm going to ask you, which is going to sound like a basic question for our audience.
All right.
What are the Akashic Records? You've described it perfectly, but if you had to encapsulate it in one sentence or two, what are the Akashic Records?
Okay. So here's what it is. The Akashic Record is a vibrational archive of every soul and its journey. Okay, everybody's in it. Like we can't throw anybody out.
Yeah.
Like forget that. Everybody's in. Okay.
All right.
So so that's the first part. Now, every set of records, like you guys each in your records, there are 2 parts, and the first part is fixed. It's like the blueprint of your soul, right? And what that is, it's like what it really is your divine potential embedded woven into your DNA, yeah?
Yes.
Of your soul.
Right.
We've got that. Now, what travels, and that is the same, that's fixed. That's the way it is for all time. And what travels along with that is the collection of stories. It's the lifetimes you live through which you awaken to your divine potential and begin to live that. And that's evolving, you see.
Mm-hmm.
That's where things, that's where there's evolution. So the pattern itself is like, it's unchanging, and that's good. We don't want that to change. I mean, this is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's so, as human beings, like when we are not here on Earth, right? When we're in other places, it's very easy to know ourselves as light and truth and goodness and all of those things. But it's a little more complicated when we find ourselves here on Earth with bodies and teenagers and mortgages,
And candy.
It's like really and really anyway. And that is the challenge. The challenge is that we come to know our soul's perfection and the innate goodness in each and every human being while we're here on Earth, even though there's not a lot of evidence all the time. But but there isn't. But do you know what else? so you guys get that part? There's one other
Yes.
thing I want to say about this. Okay, because I think this really, when I got this, it was so helpful to me. So if you can imagine, like, you know how your heart, it's like in your chest, right?
Hmm.
And at the bottom of the heart, it's almost like, let's imagine like a reflective surface, like maybe a lake or or aluminum foil or mylar or something, right? A shimmery reflective surface. Okay? And we could call that the soul, right? Okay. The Akashic record is woven in, it's infused in at the level of the soul. So the light of the Akasha emanates. It rises up out of the soul and connects us to the source. Now that connection is always in place. What happens though is when we're here on earth, it's we forget. We forget. It's like it seems not real. So the Akashic record is a bridge of light from our soul to the source, and it really holds us steady as we go through these awakenings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I like to imagine all of humanity, like the light rising up out of people, connecting everyone to the one source. It's like a layer of light, right? It's like energetic connective tissue between the soul and the source for us individually, but also collectively.
Which goes back to what you were saying at the very top of the interview when you said your first experience was of oneness. And then your next experience was you felt seen, heard, and known by the divine or by the source, which then put you on your quest to do exactly what you're doing today.
Yes.
Now, I want to go backwards for 1 second. So, the answer to the question, what are the Akashic records? I'm going to paraphrase. It is a vibrational record of every soul throughout the universe. Is that right?
Yes.
And then,
Every soul, right, but the way we work with it,
yeah.
okay, the way we work with it is we're really dealing with the soul, the human soul as and on the earth.
Mm.
Okay.
Hmm.
Now, that's really because see, we always work from where we are. Like, right, you know how, I mean, you guys have heard this, the point of power is in the present. That's actually true. What's also true is we're working from where we are, okay, in space and time. And where we are in space and time is on Earth. So we are dealing with the record as it can, as an energetic correspondent to planetary life.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
And so,
So,
and then you also said that there's 2 points to this. One is fixed, and
mhm.
and I'm scared I missed the second point.
Oh, the other is evolving.
Thank you.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, and that is, and just this is how I like to think of it. It's the Chronicles of You.
Oh, so meaning the evolving part has to do with if it has a little. I think I got this. So there's the fixed blueprint we come into the earth plane with. So we
That's right.
so we come from the spirit realm, which is non-physical, source, or divine, and
Hmm.
then we have our personality in spirit, which is a soul, which
Hmm.
is non-physical, which then with spirit through our soul we move into human consciousness. And then
Right.
when we move into human consciousness and we choose a lifetime and then we come down to the earth plane, we have these two aspects of the Akashic records. One is the fixed blueprint. And let's say mine is to come forth on the earth plane and get in a car wreck when I'm 20, so I wake the F up. And then when I'm 35, I'll have,
Well said.
yeah. And then, so we have these experiences. Let's say my fixed blueprint is to share metaphysical information in a lighthearted, fun, safe, and uplifting, humorous capacity. Let's say that's my soul's blueprint. And then there's the evolving piece of that. Is that the evolving piece that is where the free will is in the human body? I can choose to stay unconscious or I can choose to wake up. I can choose
Yes.
to follow my path or I can choose to stay asleep, right?
Yes, 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 yes. That's where all that gets played out. It's in
Wow.
there because
Hmm.
see, we go from lifetime to lifetime, right? From an Akashic perspective, the reincarnational pattern, um, when I first came into the records, I was I was raised Catholic, so it was,
I love
God,
how
bad,
she like it was a secret. I was Catholic,
right. I know. Shh, don't tell anyone. Okay, but so I was like, oh, there's great. So we've got karma, and we've got the rule book, and we've got good and bad, and that we're gonna. The goal was to like zero out at the end of time.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Right. Well, was I wrong or what? Thank God. No, it's really because I don't know. I'd be in the red. All right, but here's the thing. But here's how this goes. See, from an Akashic perspective, the object of the game, or the soul's purpose as human, right, through time and space, is to come to know and love ourselves as we are seen and known through the heart and mind of the divine. So that is unconditional love. So the journey is, instead of this good, bad, right, wrong, it's like, wow, can I love myself even though I am an imperfect human being? Can I love myself when I'm I don't, some lifetimes we have a lot of bad behavior, right? Can I love myself when I'm an international drug smuggler? Can I love myself when I'm Mother Teresa?
Can I love myself when I'm on the highway and there's 3 Prius in front of me in the carpool lane going 35 miles an hour?
Well, that's the ultimate spiritual challenge. But this is so that's really how it goes. Okay. Right? That's the progression. And see, what happens is, at some point, in the records, the record being held steady in the light of truth. You know how we always hear, I used to always hear this. It's like, the truth is within you. Just go get it, or something. But see, I'm like, great, where, what? Anyway, but so we all know that that's true. But see, what happens when we engage in the record as a spiritual practice, not as an event, right, but as a practice, it's like stepping into a sanctuary of reverence. And in this space that is governed by these Akashic absolutes, fear not, judge not, resist not, it is a very it's safe. It's like emotionally safe. And so as we enter into that space, it is easier to let ourselves know the truth. Because see, it isn't the truth that sets us free. It's the knowing the truth that sets us free. Wow. So in this space of infinite kindness and respect, we can let ourselves know the truth, and then we start going free.
That's beautiful.
So someone like myself, Eddie's a psychic intuitive. You are too. I'm an empath, but I don't consider myself I guess an advanced psychic.
But he is very intuitive.
But knowing the Akashic Records sounds amazing. But for somebody like myself, what is the benefit to know your Akashic Records?
Okay. So listen. So I love this question, but I want to actually address something that I think I'm hearing.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Okay.
I could be wrong. God knows I could be wrong, but I could be right. All right. Here's the thing. So here's the deal. You do not have to be psychic to effectively engage in your own records. See, this is somewhere in the new age. We got confused, and I certainly have been quite confused myself with this. See, I thought that in order to be spiritual, I had to be psychic. And those are two different things.
Girl, that was the hardest lesson I ever had to learn, and boy, was it ugly.
It is ugly.
Yes.
I mean, it's like, so where we got this idea, because see, here's the thing. We are talking about your relationship with your own soul. We are not talking about psychic phenomena, which I have to sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. It's actually, the record is a lousy resource for divination. Lousy, right? Because in the grand scheme of the universe, it doesn't matter what you eat for breakfast or what you wear. Come on.
Candy.
Candy, yes, of course. A walloping dose of chocolate at every meal. But all right, but that's another spiritual practice.
Yeah.
But see, I'll tell you what. For everyday people, right? one of the great opportunities of the record is really coming to know ourselves and love ourselves, appreciate ourselves more than ever before. It's really about growing into more self-respect, right?
Yeah.
Self-respect and appreciation.
Yeah.
Now, working in the record is a great way. So when I go into my records, I use the pathway prayer process. Very simple, very prescriptive. There's a rhythm to it. You follow the instructions. It's on my website. It's in all my books. Very simple. In the saying of the prayer, you have a slight shift in awareness. Okay. And it enables us to get a sense of what's happening that's deeper. Now, what personally I love about the records is I can go in with any problem. Actually, the records are really good for unbudgeable issues. That's they really are, right?
Yeah.
And to really and to really ask, what is the nature of this problem and what is the source of this, right? And what is the origin? Where did this start? So, and what happens is that we have a chance to explore some of our ordinary issues. I know for myself, this was one that really got to me. Earlier in my life, I had a real problem with speaking up for myself appropriately. I had two, all right, these are my two strategies, both disastrous, I must say. One was, right, one was to say nothing, right? If I was upset, I would just say nothing and then like be like a resentment factory. I mean, it was terrible. Okay. That really did not work. Okay. The other, which was really just equally as like terrible, was the screaming and yelling approach, right? The explosion approach. Okay. So I had two ways of, of expressing myself. It was not good. Anyway, so I looked around. And the other thing is I thought, what's up? Like, why is this such an issue? Why is this so hard for me? And I look to my sisters. I have five sisters. They all have some version of this as well. So of course then I'm mad at them because they can't be any help. And then I look at my mother who, never spoke up for herself in her 84 years. I thought, well, what good is she? So I'm like upset with I'm upset with relatives dead and alive, anyway. So here's what I do, and I'm in therapy and I'm taking assertiveness and all this stuff. So I go into my records. But here was the thing I was really getting to was that whenever I was in a situation where I would want to speak up for myself or say something, right, that might cause displeasure on the part of another person, I had this feeling like I was going to get killed.
That's right.
Okay, but I have to tell you something. That didn't make sense because in my life, no one ever held a gun to my head.
In
You know
this,
what I'm saying?
in this
Make
life.
no sense. So here's what I get. This blew me away. I'm in my records and I'm asking, where did this come from? Where did this come from? And it was almost as if, like in the records, you don't get like the entire life, but it was like I was flipping through a Rolodex of lifetimes, and I got to this. There I was. I had the sense of being a little girl holding on to her mother's skirt in like it was really it was like maybe close to the Baltic. I don't know why. I think it was close to the Baltic Sea. That's what it feels like. I'm in this place and here's the mother. There's a house full of kids. The father is off to war. And there are a bunch of young hot-headed soldiers in there. And so obviously we're really in a bad spot. So the soldiers are saying whatever. And my mother is telling them to get out. And the soldier says to her, basically, if you don't shut your mouth, I'm going to kill you.
Oh.
And she's, he's like, some kind of a snotty 18-year-old boy with a sword. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so my mother, of course, in this like flash, she tells him to cut it out or whatever. And you know what he does is he kills her.
He kills her, yeah.
Okay, so here's what I get. At that moment in time, I made a decision that I would not speak up. But I didn't do this. See, that was a wonderful idea. At that moment in time, that was a life-saving idea. And it was so powerful. It kept me alive in that life. And I, of course, taught it to my children, who taught it to their children. And you guys know, I mean, we are our own ancestors, right?
Right.
Yes.
And so I get to this life, and I'm mad at myself for having this trait. And when I realized what a powerful and loving um, decision that was at the point of origin. I mean, I'll grant you it really had run amok and was ruining my life, but where it started was good, right? That every pattern at its point of origin is loving. But I have to tell you something that flipped this over for me.
Yeah.
And when I stopped being mad at myself, see, compassion dissolves all these, all these, archaic and
Mm-hmm.
and disabling patterns. What dissolves that is compassion.
Mm.
But it's when we have compassion for ourselves, like, oh, I got it. I was like, oh, of course, what a great idea I had. So I got carried away and I've been dragging it around for about 700 years. So these things happen. We're just people. I mean, anyway. So for an ordinary person, this is one of do you see, this is one of the benefits. It's these insights. It's to have a sacred space, a way to see, it doesn't, working in the record doesn't give us a connection. We already have the connection.
Mm-hmm.
What it does is it amplifies our awareness of that connection so we can grow into our potential.
Which is another nice way of saying evolving into that which our fixed blueprint brought us here to do.
That's right.
Oh, good, Eddie.
Eddie,
okay.
you go.
All right, so that's great for for the normal folk, as we would say, but that's normal folk. But here's the thing: is when you say Akashic Records, I'm thinking of a file cabinet and folders, and so what am I looking at? Is it if we're
Okay. This is really, because you know what, Tony, this is the old idea.
Mm-hmm.
See, the old idea was there was a library with a set of books. I have to tell you something.
That's what I imagine.
Of course. And that is the old idea. And it was a great idea. But see, the way we engage it now, it's more like logging on to, it's like going on the cosmic internet.
Yeah.
Do you see?
Mm-hmm.
And that is so that it is different from that. Okay, so it's really not. And when people say, oh, the Akashic Record, it's in stone. Well, what is in stone is the blueprint of your soul. That is in stone, basically. But what is not in stone is the process through which you awaken to really who you are. That's completely evolving and mutable, right?
And up to us on a minute-to-minute basis.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I love how you're saying it's in written in stone, as it were, because the truth is the fixed part of the blueprint. I mean, the image I got when you said that, it is literally in every cell of our body, but it's also in the atoms and molecules that compose us up on a physical level as an animated soul moving these bodies around in spirit.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yes.
Can I piggyback on what you're saying? So here's I love doing psychic readings, and it is the thing I've done now for almost 25 years, and it's all I've done. I teach classes too, but I always wanted to be a better medium. People would come and go, please talk to my dad, grandma, please. and I'm like, what about your soul's growth? And like, I want to hear my grandma.
Right.
And what she wore on church every Sunday. But I went in to quote the Akashic Records, and in the mid 2000s versus the mid 80s, back in the day when I was having to go down a torch hallway.
Right. Very appropriate for the time.
Yes. And so what I ended up doing, and the last time I went in, is I simply directed my consciousness to the areas in my past lives, aka the Akashic Records, where I was a phenomenal, self-esteemable medium that was outrageously specific and accurate. And And I went right to all three of them in less than 30 minutes. And then I had that oneness and that knowingness and that truth that you described, that's sort of like living in that mylar balloon at the base of our heart chakra. And then I brought that awareness back. And as soon as I did, I started seeing and hearing and interacting and pulling specific information from the spirit world for clients per their dead relatives. And so it's totally different 30 years later as opposed to the way it was in the mid-'80s. So I like that simplicity of going in. I keep loving what you're saying, Linda, because you say the purity of the heart. If your heart is pure, if it's your soul's purpose, if you're here creating community with it, well, good community, because there's some people drinking Kool-Aid out there, right? Okay.
Well, I'm hearing both Eddie and yourself talking about past, but through Akashic Record, can you look into your future lives?
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay, yes, but here's, yes, of course, because here's the thing. Okay, so here we are in the present. The point of access is always in the present. So we understand there's nothing to go back to, there's nothing to go forward to, right? Because who we are in the moment is the convergence of all our lifetimes. Okay, so when in the saying of the prayer, it's like we step over a line. And time as we know it collapses. And what we need is available, whether it's from the past, the present, or the future. It really doesn't matter, right? From in truth, it doesn't matter. But because there, when we talk about future lives, that is not I want to say predictable. I mean, I don't think it's reliable. What is reliable is there are patterns of probability. There are likelihoods, right? This is not about, because we are, and especially at this point in time, first time in human history, we've had this level of personal choice and freedom as human beings. This is like off the charts, right? It's if you think back to 200 years ago, nobody had any choices. I mean, we have so many. Anyway, it's the truth, though. Like, people didn't. Anyway, I could really go off on that, but I'll spare us all. But see, this is what we're looking at is what are the probabilities, right? What is possible, not what is absolute. See, there's a level at which this is not predetermined. And so, but I also want to say this. When we work in the record, it's not a fish tank it's like we don't go fishing for past lives or future lives. That's not the point. The point is that we live in the present, empowered by all our experiences. Do you see? That's the real point. And that we come to understand ourselves. Like Tony, wherever you stand right now, and Ed, where you're standing, each of you is like Tony. You are the Tony zone where heaven and earth, right? You're the Tony zone where heaven and earth converge. And Eddie, you are the same, where you are the Ed version of this is where heaven and earth converge through you as you. And the record is that it's that converge. It's where the soul connects, right? It is the connecting point of the soul here on earth. So, and when people work in the record, it's very interesting because actually 85% of the people who engage in the record and use it as a spiritual practice have sense of knowing, right? It's sense of knowing. And then there's about 10% who are visual and see images, and then there's 5% who can hear, their audio. And I know for myself, I have sense of knowing, and the only time I see images are when it's past life. So do you see? So
Right.
so part of my work is really giving people. We all have this natural talent to have a more rich and valuable connection with our own soul. That's the given. But because we're the first generation in history to have this privilege, our skills aren't very good. I mean, it's not like, I don't know about you guys. My parents didn't sit down and say, now, Lynn, listen, now we're going to learn how to have a more conscious relationship with yourself.
No.
No. They were like, whatever. They had other things to talk to me about. But you know what I'm saying. So we have. But see, in my work is about great that you have the natural gift to really have a very vital awareness connection with your own soul. That's the given. But here are some tools, here are some practices and protocols that will help you. They'll refine your skills. We want your skill level to match your talent. You see? And that's where my work comes in. And honest to God, you guys, I really think 30 years from now, there won't be any classes on this. And I'll tell you, and because everybody will be like, what's the big deal? I mean, even my son, I have a 22-year-old son and his girlfriend, and the two of them are like, this is what they say, why are you making such a big deal out of this? Everybody knows God is within. And if you just listen inward, I'm like, who are these? Where do these people come from?
But it's great.
Like, why do you guys always have to talk about this stuff? This is what they say.
Well, we have about 5 minutes left,
okay.
And I know because we could talk to you for hours on this stuff because I'm learning so much, and you're amazing with your knowledge, but there's a lot of people out there that say we're Akashic teachers and guides and all this stuff. How does one know? It's kind of like a psychic. How does one know and find someone that can help guide you if we can't go to like one of your workshops, or if they haven't read your books? How does one find a legit Akashic Record expert?
Well,
or what do we look for, I guess?
Well, I say look for me.
No, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
I was going to wait
that's
for
a good
your
answer.
I have to tell you, I can't. You know what? I mean, what can I say? I say
We'll just go to you.
Honest to God, why would you go to anybody else?
Exactly. Well, I wouldn't.
Because I'll tell you what. And here's the thing. I have 3 books, right? And they are whatever. But you know what? And if people don't have money, you can get the books at the public library.
True.
I have a lot on my website, right? I'm on shows like this where I answer questions. I have a lot of resources available. I have online classes. I have in-person classes. There are many ways to work this out. Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh, of course.
But I would say, but how do you know? Because I think here's what I know. When someone tells the truth, we all sit up straight.
Oh,
Do you understand? That's really how it is. And when somebody's full of it, and I'll tell you, here's the other thing. This is my personal. This is why I had to go on my own quest, right? I looked at because whatever. But because here's the thing I noticed. I noticed that a lot of the people that I looked to, they weren't that happy.
Hello.
I can be if I want to be miserable, I'll go to a family party. Family class. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's up with that? I thought, no. See, I need a spirituality that's resilient, that enables me to go and live life to the fullest, and makes it easier to be happy.
And it's practical.
It's got to be practical. Otherwise, I have to don't get me started. Do you know, that's a whole other class. That's a book I'm not going to write because I'll just scare myself. Anyway, so that's what that's really what I would say. I would say, why wouldn't you go to the one who wrote the book? Why wouldn't you go to the expert?
Especially after they've heard you here. And I love what you said. When someone speaks the truth, sincerity is something people respond to. And you're
know the truth. We all know the truth. People are not nitwits.
No, that's
and
true.
if you and here's another answer to the question. You work with the people that you have that feeling you just described, which goes right back to the top of the interview, that feeling of oneness, connectability, you feel seen, heard, and you feel like you're experiencing truth and inner knowing in a way that literally titillates every single atom, cell, and molecule in your being.
That's right.
And guess what? You have titillated us, girl. From atoms to molecules.
Oh, you guys, I love you guys. This is
Well,
like
we love
so
you too,
fun.
and we want to guess. We're going to have to ask you back
Yeah,
because we have
please.
10,000 more questions
Yeah,
that we would
okay.
love to have
But
you back.
do you ever leave the Midwest? Do you ever come to LA?
Do you know what it looks like? I'm looking at coming to LA in I think it's in June.
You're going to be stopping in LA and into the studio,
Yeah.
please.
Have you
Oh,
ever?
would that be fun? That would be so
It'll be so
fun.
much fun. Have you ever been on a movie set?
No,
Have you ever been on a lot where they film lots of primetime television shows?
no.
Well,
Well, then
you'll-
you're
Listen,
going to get.
I'm from the Midwest.
Yeah.
then you're going to be when you come here because we're on Gower Studio a lot where Scandal and all that other stuff is
Yeah.
filmed.
So you're going to come and see us in person, girl.
I will.
All right. Well,
Right.
you need to go pick up her latest book, Discover Your Soul's Path Through the Akashic Record, taking your life from ordinary to extraordinary. So this is something that you need to pick up. And then her other books, How to Read the Akashic Records and Healing Through the Akashic Records. So
Then, of course, there's the website Linda Howe, and that's HOWE.com. And we think there's also, you can find out more about your work at AkashicStudies.com.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
this-
Yes.
amazing. I hate to even hang up and say we have to go, but
Girl, we got
it's-
to go.
Okay, and you know what, you guys, this is the best party I've been to in a long time.
Oh,
I
well,
thank you, and I'll see you guys soon.
then you deserve that again.
We'll
Thank
see
you,
in
Linda.
June.
All right, thanks a lot,
All
guys.
right, God
Bye.
bless.
Bye-bye.
Have a great holiday. All right, bye-bye. Eddie.
Yes.
She was great.
I know.
She was great. And make sure you guys, if you tuned in halfway through or you would love to hear this again, you can follow us on YouTube at TVUBN and watch all of our videos there. You can listen to Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. And so we hope you guys enjoyed this. Go to our website, truthbetoldwebtv.com, where all of our episodes are there, finding out upcoming guests. We have so much for you guys. Please follow us and join our newsletter. We send out a newsletter once a week.
It's a great newsletter, too, by the way.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Who does that?
That's me.
Oh, interesting.
I know, right?
Fabulous.
A few misspellings, but
Yeah. Magnetizing Monday.
all right. Well, all right. Stick around. We have a great guest coming on, a best-selling author, William Federer. He is going to talk about Santa Claus.
That's right. The spirit of Saint Nick. Do you believe in Santa Claus?
I do believe in Santa
I
Claus.
always have, even
Yeah.
whenever I wasn't supposed to.
Yeah, but the spirit at least.
But you know what my grandpa would do every Christmas Eve after he had some of his
Eggnog.
bourbon?
Oh, what?
He would say he would get his pistol or a rifle, and we would be on the floor at Grandma's house, and her attack dog would be like trying to get at us, and she'd be combing her mustache in the kitchen. and I was the oldest of four boys, and he would go, "I'm gonna go outside and I'm gonna effing kill Santa Claus." And then he would go
Oh, that's
outside.
not
He'd be
very
there for
nice.
about 3 or 4 minutes, just long enough to take a really long piss, and then you would hear. And then he would come in like with a piece of
Oh
red,
my God,
red
that's
velvet
mean.
or some beard hair, and my little brothers would start crying.
That's mean,
Yeah,
but funny.
even then, I still believed in Santa.
Well, we are going to find out for sure if there really is a Santa. And if you guys are interested in the Quran and Islam, we have a lot of stuff to talk about with William. So, all right, thank you guys for tuning in. And I'm Tony Sweet.
I'm Eddie Connor.
You're listening to Truth Be Told on Universal Broadcasting Network. See you
Ding,
soon.
ding, 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 ding.